Hello guys, and welcome back to Commander the Great War with our Entente playthrough. In the last episode, Russia joined the war. We have formulated a front in Serbia against the Austrians. We have attempted to create some encircling maneuvers over on the Western Front, and we have tried to meet and disrupt the push of the Schlieffen Plan, which has been mostly abandoned by the looks of it, at least for now, where we can see some of the units have pulled back, maybe just to Liege, but they have pulled back, which is definitely notable information. We have our first convoy that arrived on the map. We're trying to organize our naval powers. Speaking of naval powers, let's start there, because I haven't done much of anything this turn, but what I have done has been entirely regarding naval power. So I'm going to take this submarine. I'm going to just push him right in here, right in the middle of this passageway leading up to Austria. And he's just going to kind of blockade it. And they don't see him, so they may still attempt to come down through here. But with him blockading the area, they can't actually get through without fighting him. And I think that's something submarines are going to be especially useful for. Speaking of our naval, we got an infantry, a French infantry over here that needs to be delivered somewhere. So let's bring him over to Toulon, because historically apparently that's where he went. Toulon. And then I guess I can't unload him the same turn that he arrives in the port, but he should generally be safe now that he has arrived in port. And we'll land him, and we'll have to rail him, but we'll get him up to one of the fronts. We definitely need more infantry strength units on the front for France. There's a lot of open area here that we could try to utilize. We just need the strength to be able to utilize. I'm gonna keep these two units over here with him just in case. Be a little bit of a defense. We also have a British unit as well that needs to be delivered, and so I'm gonna bring him down to Calais. This is the BEF. It's a single British infantry. I'm going to want to make sure that he is protected as well. I don't know how protected he needs to be. I'll take this light cruiser and go toss it right there. Take this light cruiser and toss it over here. There you go. That should be protected. I don't know if he needs to be protected while in port. This game's tutorial is very lacking and doesn't really teach you anything. So I just hope that I'm doing it right. We did recon over here to see if they're naval forces were anywhere we could see. They're not. They're likely docked or gathering somewhere outside of our vision. At least, you know, submarines aside, because we can't see the submarines unless we stumble upon them. We do want to unify the majority of our naval force here, the British naval force, which reminds me there is a single British, what is this, armored cruiser that needs to keep moving this way. I'm going to let the French take the Mediterranean and eventually the Italians as well, whereas the British are going to go basically everywhere else. I hope that's a smart plan. I mean, the Germans have the strongest navy of all of our enemies, and it's somewhere over here. The Russians certainly cannot deal with it. But the Austrians and Ottomans' combined navy isn't so great. I hope the French navy, you know, these two and this group and this submarine here would be enough. And if they're not, hopefully the Italian thrown in is enough, because they're not going to get more naval units. They're limited. The Ottomans are still neutral, so I'm going to take this submarine and just kind of use it to see what we're going up against here. We can see there's a small garrison at Constantinople, a light cruiser sitting right here. Okay, we're probably not going to blockade this area. Russia can't afford to really use its navy very much. It has not the worst ships, I guess, pre-dreadnoughts and armored cruisers. It's better than having like only light cruisers, another submarine, an armored cruiser, a pre-dreadnought, a dreadnought. So this navy is way more powerful, but it can't afford to do a whole lot with what it has, unfortunately. Our submarines are invisible until they run into something, so I'm going to use them as scouts to kind of take stock of the whole area here. So let's see, it can see 1, 2, 3 out, 1, 2, yeah, 2, 1. All right, let's move it here. Just take a peek. This is the big crossroads of this area. Based on the fact that there's no Germans here, I'm gonna say we can narrow it down to they're probably all docked or they've grouped up somewhere over here. Submarines aside, of course, because they have the same benefits that we have. Since it's mainly the Germans we have to worry about, and since they do have a lot of land to go through here, or sea in this case, I don't want to have to leave my submarines over here because they could be far more useful doing other things due to their invisibility. I think it actually makes them one of the strongest naval units in the game since they can go invisible, and because you have a sub-attack rating separate to naval attack ratings, so only weaker ships are actually very good at dealing with them. I think it might be wise to split my navy up around here between the North Sea and the Channel to try to cover ground to make sure no Germans can get out. At least the range is so tiny that if they did show their face, we could mobilize our fleet into action at just about any time. So I'm thinking of splitting like 2 dreadnoughts to the Channel and 2 dreadnoughts to the north of the North Sea, and then using the pre-dreadnought in the center. At least that's my idea, and then reinforcing them with things like armored cruisers and light cruisers. So the pre-dreadnought I'm going to leave in a more centered position, I'd say. Yeah, so let's move him up here, and we're going to move the armored cruiser with him. We're going to take 2 dreadnoughts, and we're going to move them down into the Channel. They're going to be reinforced, obviously, with light cruisers. There are 2 light cruisers over here that after this lands will head up to reinforce. I'm only going to leave 1 light cruiser here for now. Yeah, that seems good. I'm going to move a light cruiser forward with this pre-dreadnought. We're going to take these other 2 dreadnoughts and move them further north, about as far as I can get them. Here we go. And we're going to move some light cruisers up north with them as a bit of a screening right here. There you go. That seems like it'll work pretty nice. And then I have these 2 down here, which after they're freed up, I'm sure I'll send 1 over here with these dreadnoughts. And I don't know where the other one's going to go, but we also have more incoming from the last turn. We have another light cruiser, another pre-dreadnought, and an armored cruiser. Seems good for shoring up the center. I don't know if I necessarily want to like rush in and go looking for them, because they're probably docked, and it's so narrow here, our numerical advantage would lose all steam. So long as the main navy of our opponents isn't on the move, you know, we'd kind of be good. And so long as they're not causing too much havoc up here by Russia, but even if they did, really, what's the worst that could come of that? The Russians lose their navy? Oh, well, boo-hoo. They're not going to do anything with it anyway. What are they going to do, navally invade Russia? Right now, it looks like they're having trouble just manning all their fronts because more and more fronts keep opening. As for the French Navy, we have it kind of unified over here. Let's see, we have only a single dreadnought over here currently. There's no light cruisers down here, and that could potentially be a weakness, but hopefully our subs can make up for that. I don't think the Ottomans were really known for submarines, so I don't think we necessarily have to worry about that too much. But I do have more submarines. I'm going to move this one up north. I'm going to make a big French battle fleet. That is my goal here at the end of the day, with the exception of this French submarine that is blocking off the Gibraltar, which I may eventually just send a British one down there, but the Brits don't actually have a lot of submarines. They have a big surface fleet. Submarines aren't their best thing. I'm going to use the British industry to create more submarines, though, because I believe them to be so versatile. Over in Serbia, there's not an insane amount that we need to or even can do, but the infantry that I ordered at like the beginning of the game has finished production, so I'm going to go ahead and place that near Kraljevo. There you go, plop that into the forest. I'm going to want to end up swapping that into where this garrison is, and then we will have 1 less garrison to worry about having on our front lines. The more of this we can turn into infantry, I think just the better, because the less likely they are to fuck with us. But we do have a lot of garrisons and not really enough production to be able to switch all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4 more. Turning all of that into infantry is going to be nigh impossible. I feel like, even if we get rid of all these other garrisons. Now that we have this infantry done and we're working with such little in Serbia, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to disband. You know, they keep popping this up even though I've already read it. This corps right here, this garrison, rather than this one, because I get more back for this one for whatever reason. I guess if it's been injured ever, you get less. That's weird, but okay. I'm going to disband this one. Not only will I get some resources, manpower, and production points back, I've gone from 6 to 8 expected change because we just got rid of its upkeep. I'm going to take this garrison and march it down into that city. It can take its place and its fortifications. This one I'll end up moving down here once this infantry moves in, and hopefully I can balance my resources with the strategic disbanding of garrisons and hopefully get more infantry on this front line, because if we can get more infantry, and especially surrounding Belgrade, you know, maybe down here doesn't matter as much, but if I can get this to become infantry as well, and then maybe get an infantry right here or so, then we can really fortify Belgrade. So even if the Bulgarians come through, even if the Ottomans assist them, they'd have a damn hard time actually taking Belgrade, and that is just the most important part of all of Serbia. Skopje, I'm not saying that right, I'm sure, down here is also worth quite a bit. No, I actually can't tell which one's really worth more because they both have stars, implying that they're both capitals. Why does Serbia have 2 capitals? That's really confusing. Because I've been producing so many things with the French, because I want to really reinforce their front line and make them more able to hold and potentially push back at the very start before I start doubling down on any of their like ammunition or anything like that. I've gone ahead and produced 2 infantry and a garrison here. I don't have enough points to really do anything with France. We're only getting 21 a turn. I already used some of it on repairs. But we can work with what we have, and we do have some ammo here that we can expend still. The weak parts of this front are still at the edges, with a German level 2 garrison and an Austrian level 1 infantry. And I don't know what all of these stats necessarily mean. I don't know if I can navigate through the UI. Here we go. I don't know what that is. Is that a symbol I can find somewhere else? Yes, high defense. I guess that's against planes or something, yeah. Overall, the defense and the weakness of this line seems to be right here, though, with the German garrison. So I'm going to go ahead and take this arty, and I'm going to try to bombard this German garrison here. We actually did damage, like just straight up damage there, as well as some damage to their efficiency. So I'm also going to take the plane, my fighter plane. I know I saw they have a bunch of planes up here that they just moved some in over here. I do think the fighter is safe to stay here, though. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to strafe this. Yeah, we should be good to do that. Yeah, we didn't lose anything. They didn't necessarily lose anything, but they did lose some efficiency. So we're going ahead and we're weakening them pretty well. The odds went from killing 1 and losing 1 on both sides to now killing 2 and losing none. So this is already pretty good. So I'm going to take this forward infantry and we're going to attack. Nice. We lost nothing except maybe some efficiency, and we went ahead and we dealt 2 damage. It's now down to 7. That's good. Now we're going to take this infantry and we're going to attack as well. Okay, force retreat. Your last attack forces the enemy unit to retreat. Units retreat when suffering more than 50% of their previous strength value in attack. Oh, okay. While dealing less than 20% casualties to their opponent. That's the rest of the sentence. Cavalry units deal additional damage to a target when forcing units to retreat. Okay, good to know. So it's now down to 4, and it's been pushed back another step. Since what we're dealing with over here is lower level Austrian or weakened German, I'm going to actually go ahead. I'm going to take this infantry, and I will move it forward into these forests to kind of push up the front. Over in the northwest here, I think I'm going to play a little more defensively than I can. With the amount of cavalry and stuff I have up here, the amount of forces here, and the fact that they even left a cavalry of their own cut off in an attempt to attack Calais, I could play offensively, especially to try to reroute a supply line to Antwerp. The thing is, whereas they may have pulled back some stuff here, they still have air units over here, and this is still 3 level 2 German infantry. I don't even know how leveling up works in this game. All I know is I don't have the forces here to even begin to compete with what I'm looking at. And they're entrenched. And I don't want to go near them while they're entrenched. Nothing good can come of it. So the best I can really hope to do is make them leave their entrenchments and come closer to me. The cavalry is not really going to matter that much. It's also a level 2 cavalry. But we need to get some kind of entrenchment set up here, and the longer I leave my units, the more likely they are, I believe, to set up their entrenchments. We have the BEF about to land, so when it lands, you know, we can move this cavalry then, and the BEF can take over these entrenchments, for example. But until then, I want to make sure we continue to own these entrenchments. I'm going to take this garrison that was on its way towards Paris. I'm going to actually move it up and put it right by this bridge, and it's going to sit there. If they head south, then they're going to leave a lot of their stuff open, so I don't think they'll do that. If they do, it would do nothing but benefit me. The Belgian armored car has been repaired. It'll be good to harass them and move forward next turn. Hopefully our entrenchments will be set up north of Paris after as well. And I think this is just a good, cautious way to handle this. Not to mention we have more French units landing in the south. We have a French garrison being done next turn, and 2 turns after that we'll have 2 more French infantry. And then if they stay this weak on this front, I believe we can easily turn this around. But I'm sure they won't stay this week. They've heavily fortified Serbia, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to stay that way, because the AI is already proving that it's very willing to work as a coalition to go wherever it needs to go with whatever rail capacity it has. That's about all I'm going to do on the Western Front. I don't think we really have the troops to do much more than that without taking any unnecessary risks. Like right here, if I move forward any more, we risk this unit, or even all of these units, getting cut off and surrounded and losing supply, and that going to shit really quickly. So we're going to leave that be. So now we have the big bear, the green giant Russia to deal with. Tsarist Russia, which immediately looks overwhelming because it's just so much land and so many units, but almost all of these are small garrisons, though they do have a sizable force for us to work with. Unfortunately, almost all of it, especially at the front, is garrison sized, and that's not good. Russia's infantry is going to be its strength. That is a fact. However, we don't have the strength of infantry at the front right now. We have 3 infantry-sized units over by Moscow, which we can rail forward, which we are going to need to rail forward, but we only have enough rail capacity to do this once per turn. And we don't want to let them, the Central Powers, react too quickly. I'm sure the AI has already been scripted to react and set up some defenses, which we cannot currently see right now. Over by Königsberg, Danzig, over on the Austrian border, we've seen units being pulled back and moving around. But we do need to go on the offensive. These units are not here to sit. When we're looking at Russia, the overall amount of territory doesn't really matter as much. What matters is strategic point control. And we need to use what we have to go on an offensive before entrenchments start getting made and before it gets too difficult to actually pull off an offensive. The first thing we're going to want is to know what we're going up against. So the entire Russian front looks poised to invade Eastern Prussia, which in this map is actually really fucking tiny. So that should be easier if it's not already reinforced. But we need to know what's in here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send one of these troops forward. Let's say right here. We're going to get a peek at what's over here. Okay. So there's barely anything over here. There's a garrison and an infantry, but they're both fairly entrenched. So we do have that to potentially worry about. We also need to know what we're working with down at the Austrian front as well. And also maybe block their movement headed east, where we have basically no troops aside from some garrisons. We're going to take this garrison unit and just move it straight up to Lemberg and block off the railway and the path leading east. And we can see already that there is simply a level 1 Austrian garrison here, and it's entrenched, so an outright attack could be maybe not the smartest thing. I'm going to go ahead and move this garrison up as well. And we actually ran into an enemy here, a small garrison, entrenched in between Przemysl, I can't read that, and Lemberg. So we have an idea of what our front here looks like. I'm going to take this garrison as well and move it forward and make a line of our own. I think some maneuvers and some encircling tactics will definitely prove pretty handy on this Russian front, although our reliance on garrisons at the start are going to be potentially troublesome. I'm going to take these 2 garrisons up by Eastern Prussia, and I'm going to move them forward as far as they can go and just jam our fists right into Eastern Prussia. If we can push them back, you know, we can completely cut off Königsberg except for the port. As for this unit, I mean, we can potentially get around it and cut it off as well. We lower supplies. It would be easier to take out. Now, they're probably mounting a rapid response right now, but I do believe their rail capacity is not large enough to meet every threat poised by Russia at once. At least that's my hope. I think I'll do something similar to what I was doing in my To End All Wars series, and I will leave these troops here in Poland to kind of serve as a defensive front, let them push in on Poland, and then hold the line with this garrison and this infantry unit around Warsaw and whatever the hell this is, so that I can take this infantry and push it south with these garrisons as far as it can go currently to make a push, a proper push against Austria, especially while they seem to lack a solid force up on this front. This infantry could smash through certain things on this front, such as this small garrison. The garrisons themselves are just going to get hurt. We have an armored train that we can send forward, and I think I'm going to send it towards Königsberg, because supposedly it would be pretty good against infantry, and it could maybe help us force them out of Eastern Prussia. If we can get Eastern Prussia, that opens us up to many more maneuvers than we currently can really do. There's also an infantry unit here. I'm going to push that up as far as it can go. I'm going to plant it on the rail line too. And, oh, look, that actually opens up the ability to just march the armored train straight up to Königsberg. Wow, this can really move far, huh? Yeah, all right, well, let's march that armored train up. And we can see now that there is just a straight-up battleship here. We can also see our odds against the garrison. Not looking too hot, but if we march just the garrisons alone up, it would probably look worse. So if we can surround and encircle this, I'm sure that would be pretty handy. We're going to need to march up artillery as well, certainly, just without a doubt, if we're going to actually accomplish anything over here. And our air is going to want to be close enough to partake in combat as well if we want to get rid of the German entrenchments here. And the German entrenchments are going to be harder to deal with than the Austrians for sure. So let's move up the artillery this far onto the rail line. And let's take the planes, and it has a range of 5, yeah? So 1, 2, 3, 4... I don't want to move it up too far and have it get cut off. Let me see what I'll do with some other units first. Like this cavalry, I'm going to actually march this cavalry right back down to these entrenchments so I can have a bit of a presence here and maybe some maneuvering capacity. And here we can see that they also have some cavalry nearby, which may try to get around us and encircle us. Now that's pretty important information, I'd say. So I'm going to move this cavalry up to right about here so this cav doesn't accomplish anything sneaky. Gonna also take this garrison unit. It's not needed up here, so I'm just gonna move it straight southwest. Probably this one as well. They can just march straight southwest. They're close enough to the front that I'm not going to rail them anywhere. They don't need to be railed. The rails need to be saved for these infantry, otherwise we're not going to see them for forever, seeing as they're just stuck in a mess of forests. I'm not sure how all the fighting over Germany and Poland's going to go, but I do know for a fact we are going to end up needing an infantry down by Austria. So for the first infantry that I rail south, I'm going to send it right down to Kiev and let it march its way west. It's going to take a few turns, but Russia is expected to mobilize slowly in terms of production and unit arrival. So let's rail that bitch down there. And out of curiosity, that does take efficiency. How do you restore efficiency? It will automatically recover when a unit does not move and is not involved in combat during one or more turns. Okay, that's pretty simple then. Let a unit rest. Now, I know historically Russia had an ammunition problem. I'm not sure how that will translate into this game, but I'm going to just start out by purchasing another ammunition production facility for 30. We have 40 production points. We're not even fully mobilized. I'm going to go ahead and purchase that. Leaves us with 10, not really any amount we can do anything with. We're producing 33 a turn. I would like to get every one of my big nations to at least 10, you know, enough to shoot one arty piece a turn, and then see what we actually need from there. We only have one arty piece right now. We don't need to worry about ships very much, so I'm not too worried, especially because this bitch isn't even up close. But before I start producing mass amounts of infantry or other units, I want to see what we're getting into as Russia, because I don't know how this country plays, and I don't know how this is really going to go. The last thing I'm going to move for this turn, the last thing I really have to do is moving this fighter. I'm going to move this up closer to the front for sure. I'd love to move it right there, but we don't have that leeway. It'll be a little safer over here too, so let's move it forward. Now we can see a lot better. Wow, we can see where a lot of their navy is. Man, they have level 3 light cruisers. What are our light cruisers? Level 2, level 2, level 2. Wow, level 2. Oh my god. But their armored cruisers, their pre-dreadnoughts are pretty low level. Well, our pre-dreadnoughts and armored cruisers are too, but we have level 2 dreadnoughts, and that's probably the real strength of the British Navy, their light cruisers and their dreadnoughts. Whereas I'm not sure what the strength of the German Navy is, but I believe our capital ships will beat theirs. And with that, let's go ahead and hit end turn and see what these results are. Okay, so the German Navy is actually on the move. They rushed forward and ambushed one of our light cruisers, or whatever they were called there. Okay, geez, so much artillery and other offensives happening on the Serbian front. This is moving by so fast I can't even fucking narrate it. Holy shit. They're moving so many things in and out of the front here rather than just staying still. They keep reshuffling their troops. I don't think that's the smartest idea, but here we go. They just moved more infantry forward and they're pushing pretty heavily against the Russians. We push forward, trying to stop us from claiming any land. Yeah, they're moving so many units off other fronts into these fronts. What are these starred units? These are generals, right? They just moved 2 generals to the eastern front. Yeah, they must have, including the one they had on the western front. Oh, they're actually moving forward here. What? They're leaving so much of their rear open. Oh, can I not control the convoys? Do they control themselves? Oh, well, I got a general here, a French general. An attacker by nature often neglects to properly prepare his army's defensive line. He's popular and appreciated for his calm under pressure. Okay, let's deploy him. Well, I don't need to deploy him just yet. We can see him later. I was hoping we'd be able to see some stats of him just right here before I deployed him. Okay, we can see what it does for the unit, actually. That's pretty cool. So it gives a little more defense, actually, a little more attack, and some shock value. Naturally, I'd want someone that's using a more offensive role to have this, and our biggest offensive seem to be happening around here. It seems he also has an AoE around him, so we maybe want to leave him a little more centered then. Alright, this should work right here, right in the center of this all. Let's just confirm, right? Let's look at these stats. 14 and 10. And, well, this one's 14 and 10. We take the unit, we deploy him right here, and now 17-11. Okay, so it's not just the unit, he deploys it to everyone. So a centered deployment, definitely really good. And around here is definitely where we want to have him. Oh man, look at that. 4. Holy shit, I don't know why this one's 2. But this one's 4. We could definitely push this unit out. They left us so much opportunity here. Wow. This next turn is going to be a pushover. And what's this merchant doing over here? I thought I'd be able to move it myself, but apparently not. It's going to just automatically move itself to where it's going. They automatically spawn. They carry their production points and manpower for their own nation. Okay, so we have to kind of escort them, but they move on their own. I was hoping we could just move it over here, but it's probably going to go right to the homeland. Like, this one's probably going to go all the way to the British Isles. And we know there's Germans here. They already sank one of our light cruisers here, so we're gonna have to deal with them as well. But this is why I split up the way that I did, so I could kind of clamp down, close in on them, which I know I can. We have some pretty good troops here to send down south to intercept and destroy those German units. I mean, the 2 dreadnoughts still here could make quick work of everything that they left over here. We don't even really need the reinforcements. They only went for the light cruiser as a target of opportunity. I don't think anything that happened this turn, despite it not being like the best turn in terms of the enemy's actions, is going to necessarily hurt us too much in the long run. That is a nice full turn, so I'm going to end this episode here, and thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you guys are enjoying this series, and I'll see you on the next one.